is AM Exclusive. My name is Benjamin Akakwo. It's a pleasure to bring you another installment. And the man I'm about to speak to today, he is the son of a die-hard CPP man. Yes, his father was a die-hard CPP man, but he ended up working extensively with the National Democratic Congress. He is, in fact, a former Deputy Minister of Defense, a former ambassador of Ghana to the Netherlands, and former President Mills, may his soul rest in peace. He was a senior presidential aide and head of the Policy and Evaluation and Oversight Unit of the office of the late President Mills. Of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg. He has played many roles that I cannot mention as I introduce him. I'm sure you've guessed by now. The white-haired, no-nonsense Dr. Tony Aidoo. Doc, I see I've got even you yes, smiling.
Yes, thank you. Just for a slight correction.
Okay, tell me.
Most members of my family were UP.
I see.
We live just opposite the Asante Palace. That's where I was born.
Manchia?
Yes, my grandfather, who was incidentally a cripple, was also well known in the area. And I became anti-UP because I saw the atrocities that were meted out to persons who were not Ashantis.
I see.
That was the period of the ethnic cleansing by the NLM.
The National Liberation Movement.
And they say, Fantiformum Komukrum, Anguraformum Komukrum. One afternoon at 2 o'clock, I was just about 6.5 years old. I was sick. So my great-grandmother was the one looking after me. You know, Kumasi houses, they are what you call a compound houses with the rooms on each side. Suddenly we had this fancy woman who used to be a bread seller run, and she was being chased by 4 stalwart MPP action troopers from the King's Palace, the palace itself.
NPP.
Seeking sanctuary and saying Infante, Nana Mabodo. Nana Mabodo means Nana, I'm seeking your sanctuary. They just dragged this woman, laid her and pounded her with mortar right in front of me and my grandmother.
How long ago was this?
In the 60s.
60s?
Killed her right in front of us. That's how the politics of this country has been. You remember the Kulungungu
bombing?
Nkrumah attended a CPP meeting. Before then, for about 3 years, he never set foot in Kumasi. They said they banned him. At the Prempe Assembly Hall, that's where the meeting took place. And that's where they were going to bomb him. Can you imagine the casualties that would have happened?
Just because of one man?
Just because of one man. Hundreds would have died. So the one who was to throw the bomb decided that the number of casualties was not worth it. Then Nkrumah drove from Kumasi to Kulungungu only to be bombed again. That's the kind of politics that has played out in our country.
Okay, so you're referring then to the UP tradition?
UP tradition. The UP tradition.
I mean, I didn't expect when I mentioned the CPP that this would come, but that's how interviews go. But is that to say that made you averse to that tradition till today?
Yes. My father was the only member of the family who did not support the NLM and the UP tradition, but he kept it to himself. He was not that vocal. But
so was he CPP?
He had a sympathy with Nkrumah, but he was not an activist.
Okay.
Neither was I an activist at the age of 6.5. I couldn't be an activist. But that's how I got to hate the MPP political tradition.
Is hate not too much of a strong word?
No, it isn't. I hate them for what they did. An innocent woman, because she's fancy, you kill her. Why?
But
why is this primitive behavior? Barbaric.
Was she killed because she was Fanti?
Yes. Because she was Fanti. They chased her. And she knew the only house she could get sanctuary was my grandmother's house. That is...
Well, I mean, from the 60s, we're in the 2020s now. Have things changed?
Things haven't changed. They say, oh, NDC has a cool background, so violence is ingrained. But we saw real violence in Kumasi. The road from the Asante Hennes Palace to Chiamia Kutosu is just about three-quarters of a kilometer. You can't walk that road with your hands open. This was a symbol called freedom, Nkrumah's freedom. You have to do this. That is the symbol of the NLM. That's how you greet along that road. Woe unto you if you open your palm to wave to somebody. The dirty slaps you will get. The only people who stood against them, I remember, was James Owusu, Sule MB, and a few. The CPP, they were based at Bompata. And the UP was based at Menchia.
But you do realize, as time has evolved, some changes have come about. If you look at the MPP, for example, they will tell you that we are the party that stands for democracy, the rule of law, freedom of speech, and all of that.
That's just sheer talk. What is democratic about them? Seriously, what is democratic about
After the 1992 elections, they were the ones who pushed for transparent ballot boxes. I mean, the criminal libel law and its repealing. You can say they have some. If you may not give them everything, but they have some credentials, don't they?
Beyond the rhetoric, also lacks extreme violence in their nature.
Like what?
Look at the way Akufo-Addo has destroyed the democratic environment. In the year 2000, when the NPP held its last rally at Mancha Agbona, Akufo-Addo was one of the speakers. After their rally, Rawlings asked me, what do you think of him? And I say, he's a fascist.
A fascist?
A fascist.
Why would you describe him as a fascist?
Because he's a fascist. Look at the way he has bastardized all our constitutional bodies. Where is the independence of the Electoral Commissioner? The whole judiciary has been bastardized. Even the Electoral Commissioner has officers who everybody knows comes from this NPP side.
But they will tell you that they must pick somebody, and it's either this person may belong to that.
So why go and compromise the Electoral Commissioner? He's supposed to be independent, neutral. You pack your activists into that organization. Right now, nobody trusts the Electoral Commissioner. And yet, I've known Jean Mensah and her husband for a very long time. They are my good friends. When Charles Mensah started the IEA, his office was at Jowolo. It was I who took him to Justice Annan. I didn't even know that he was related to Justice Annan. But I took him to Justice Annan to try and get MPs to participate in the programs that he was doing. We used to travel Akufo-Addo, Elmina. Once we went with Kwame Pianim to Akufo-Addo to hold a seminar. So they've been very good friends. But I'm surprised.
You're surprised?
I'm surprised at Jean's behavior. I've talked to her, and I said, posterity will judge you if you do the bidding of the MPP. You've been appointed. You are not obligated to anybody except the Constitution. That is where your obligation is. Don't fix things for the MPP. The recent balloting was rigged. I was sitting in front of the TV. I saw it.
What did
Remember
you see?
At one point, Omane Boama and others insisted that the bags should be changed from transparency to opaque so that nobody will
see through.
The one who was doing it dropped the ball and picked it up again and put it quietly into the other balls on top, so that the MPP person who is number one to pick will pick that one, pick the number one.
But there were also claims that it was someone else. It was a different person who picked it, went and sat down with it and gave it to...
No, he picked it. He picked the ball that the EC man quietly picked from the ground and placed it quietly into the green opaque bag. So when he went, he just did something and picked that number one. I immediately sent a text to Omane Boama, but he wasn't paying attention. It was after the event. Then he replied me. This time, they shouldn't dare manipulate the elections. People say, oh, elections are won at the polling station. Elections can be lost in the strong room of the Electoral Commissioner. In 2008, I was there. When they tried to rig the elections, our own man, Rojo Metil
Rojo
held the 6 Kumasi constituencies whose results have come. He held it for more than 48 hours. Then I had somebody at the Air Force Base who was relaying to me the movement. Around 1:30, Jacobichi Bilamte and Kandapa took the F-27 to Kumasi, where they changed the results for those 6 constituencies. So when Rojo finally released those constituencies that have come, Shia, Eso, Bantama, Menchia, etc. They went around the corner, tore it up, and brought in a new one. I confronted the guy who was manning the fax machine. In those days, every region had a dedicated fax machine. So in the hula baloo, I drew Afarijan's attention and I said, let's audit the Kumasi, the Ashanti region fax machine. He expunged the record. He has expunged the record.
As in deleted?
Deleted. And yet the record should have been there. When I told Mills...
So when you say he, whom are you referring to?
One of the electoral commissioners at the strong room.
And so did that record stand?
Of course. That's why we went to time.
So you're saying something interesting here. You are suggesting, because in that election...
They substituted fresh results for the 6 constituencies.
In that election, then contender Akufo-Addo was in the lead. In fact, the runoff, he was in the lead, and Atta Mills was, behind him. You're suggesting that there was tampering, which even got Akufo-Addo to get that lead.
Yeah. And yet they couldn't win. So Mills said, Tony, don't worry. I know I will win. So we went to time and we won. But elections can be lost in the strong room of the EC. All the way, election is a process at every point. Something funny can go on. Like 2008, it went on. They substituted fresh results for the 6 that had come almost 48 hours before. When I took those 6, I drove to Cocoa Hill to photocopy because I had an inkling something was going to happen. By the time I got there, Rojo has called Kwame Ahoy at the strong room at the Cocoa Hill. And Kwame said, no, you lied this, just take it back, you won't let me photocopy. In my anger, I forgot that even my phone could have scanned the results. So I returned it. And as soon as I left the strong room, Rojo passed on those results to the MPP. They tore it up and replaced it with the one they went to Kumasi to fix.
Wow.
Yes.
But you don't, I mean, this sounds very interesting, but you don't have anything to back it up because you...
No, because I didn't take a picture. But I knew it had come. That's why Asidun Ketia and others all rushed to the Electoral Commission.
Okay, so we've had election petitions like in 2012. 2008 was clear. Time, decided it in the end.
Yeah, but even then they wanted to go to court because they knew the judiciary was on their side. Atachian went and filed a writ to stop time coming on.
Yeah.
In the evening, I had a TV session with him and Paul Ademochiri. And I told him, your writ is incompetent in 2 instances. First, the people of Tyne has nothing to do with your quarrel with the EC. So you cannot go and disenfranchise them. Secondly, you are caught by Estopel because it was your general secretary who at the meeting agreed to change the date that time was going to be held to a new date. Having decided on the new date, you can't come and file a writ to stop the election from going on that date.
So interesting dynamics, but let me come back to what you said. You know Jean Mensah.
Yeah.
You know, is it Charles Mensah as well? And you say you are surprised at how she's acting.
Yes.
Do you foresee, do you trust that she'll deliver free, fair, transparent elections come December 7th? Really December the 2nd with, you know, special voting, then December 7th.
I really don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
For someone you've known for so long, you don't trust her to do that?
Jean's approach to the management of the EC has been too, how shall I say, combative.
Combative, I see.
You see, if you have power, you don't have to use it to be powerful. Because the more power you exercise, the less power you have in reverse. What is important is that you are trusted. Your neutrality and independence will be enhanced if you are open rather than combative. And so far, under her stewardship, she's been too combative. The Electoral Commissioner shouldn't be combative. You want people to trust you. So, what you do is you cooperate. You don't strut yourself as if nobody can touch you. You are subservient to the Constitution. But you have other entities who are also interested. So you sit down and judge. Afarajan never had a problem with our political parties, even though they used to say he is Rawlings' man. He is not Rawlings' man. If you're talking about a man of integrity, it's Afarajan. 2 o'clock that day, Jacob Echebilamte, what's his name? Our former local government minister, Damboche. You know, their office is just opposite the Electoral Commission. So I was always standing on the balcony watching. They came and went straight to Afarajan, 2 o'clock. And I also went to Afarajan. They wanted to force Afarajan to declare. And I showed Afarajan. And I was using a D-based program, so you can track what is happening. And I showed Afarajan. He said, I can't declare. It's too early to declare. We are dealing with very dubious people. Very.
You've been talking about handling power, that you don't have to exercise power to be powerful.
Putative power is the most powerful thing.
Putative power, I like that.
Putative.
Right, but there's the IPAC. People have said that the IPAC has transmogrified into something that they can't recognize. Your party, the NDC, left it. It has joined it again. And then there's also the issue of the Volta and Ahafo regions. I'm sure you followed recently the ballot papers with wrong serializations that were detected, and they've been burnt. How do you react quickly? I just want to do these as the final one for the EC.
The EC has not operated in a manner that we can say, well done. In the first place, the staffing is even a problem. Most of the deputy commissioners are MPP activists.
Really?
Bosman Asari, you know, they're all
Bosman
MPP.
Asari is an academic.
Oh, I were academic. See, the only academic who qualifies to be appointed.
I actually sat in his class at a point in political science. He was head of department at a point of that department at the University of Ghana.
So what would you say if John Mahama appoints me to go to the Electoral Commission?
You've also been an academic, haven't you?
Uh-huh. But I'm politically exposed as an NDC man.
Mm. Would you even take up a position like that?
I won't.
Okay.
Rawlings wanted me to chair the NCC when Larry Bimi was going to retire. And I said, I'm too politically exposed for you to give me this post. I told him that. You understand? If anybody would have wanted to tamper with the Constitution, it should have been Rawlings. Because he was chafing under the restrictive measures of the Constitution. And yet, he cooperated. Rawlings never did anything that was unconstitutional.
But
he never packed the courts. Like this man has packed the courts.
You mean President Akufo-Addo?
Akufo-Addo packed the courts, packed the EC. Why?
But these are all, you talk about constitutionality. These are all constitutional powers that he has.
But you shouldn't abuse it.
He doesn't choose judges. He doesn't.
But he's abusing.
There's a process that gets judges to him, and he signs off on them.
I was a member of the Consultative Assembly. Perhaps the mistake we did was that we put too much trust in human nature. We never anticipated that one day we will have a president who is fascist. Fascist.
You insist on calling our president a fascist.
But he's a fascist, and his fascism is the West. Because Hitler, Mussolini, etc., their fascism was based on a sense of nationalism. He doesn't have national orientation. To him, it's clannish, tribalistic fascism. And it's playing to all our observation over the past 8 years. We've seen it. We've seen it destroying every bit of our constitutional bodies that we set up. And that's why I said, we, the members of the Consultative Assembly, we made a mistake in having our belief that we won't have a president who will abuse the prerogatives that we've given him under the Constitution.
This goes all the way back to 1992,
yes.
The Consultative Assembly.
Yes.
Do you think, because there are those who have also said that, listen, our Constitution is not that we should throw it away, but there are some aspects that are no longer fit for purpose. Do you agree with them?
Yes, I do. Because of the way the Constitution lends itself to abuse. We could have more or less put in principles or clauses that will restrain the president, but we trusted.
But is it not also because the person who was going to be president, who likely would win, was a member of your party in the person of Rawlings, and so you gave the person wide powers, but later that came back to bite you and all of us?
He never abused the powers that he had, did he?
But I'm talking of the thinking behind it. Well,
we didn't plot to give him a constitution that he can abuse. Look, every provision that we approved was done in very serious debate. I had what I call Black Friday. My Black Friday was that I moved almost 20 amendments to take out the Council of State. I had the Council of State tottering on its legs when Osafo Mafo's committee presented. He was the chairman of the representation of the People's Committee. I was in the powers of government with Otiosribo and Tugbe Party and others. Incredibly enough, he allowed the Constitution to guide him. He never abused it. Show me one instance in which Rawlings abused the Constitution. He could have promoted a whole lot of judges to the Supreme Court if he was Akufo-Addo. But this
how do you think we can fix that? Another president comes, we don't have a ceiling, we don't have, in the United States, they have a system that works for them. They have 9, of course, there are 6 conservatives and all that.
We need some amendment.
We need some amendments.
The provisions that give our president that power to hire.
And fire.
And fire. There is a need. When the CRC, Commission for Review of the Constitution, presented their report. You
mean in 2010?
In 2010. I, Kwame Nkrumah, Haruna Idrisu, Tachu's lawyer, Professor, I keep forgetting his name, is it Professor of
I'm not sure.
The one who defended Tachu.
I'm not sure.
And he was also a member of the CRC. We were tasked to write a white paper. We wrote the white paper. Most of the provisions we saw are being abused. We offered in the white paper to rectify it.
But the white paper itself was, it was like treating, because this is a huge document, yes. It was like treating what had been put there by now Professor Tugba and others with kid gloves. I mean, you had every advantage to implement those things, but you did not.
No.
From Mills to Mahama, you did not.
When Mahama set up the implementation committee, was it Kweku Azar or one
Professor Azar?
No, Professor, he's a lawyer. I think he works for CDD or something.
Is it H. Kwesi Prempeh?
Kwesi Prempeh. Was he not the one who took the president to court? The case is still at the Supreme Court on grounds that the president cannot amend the Constitution. That is what stopped the implementation committee from effecting the changes. We all agreed that there were certain aspects of the Constitution that needed amendment. The Constitution itself, there's nothing wrong with the Constitution. The only thing you may say is that it lends itself to abuse by unscrupulous people. But we did it in good faith. When that last Friday, my Black Friday, the debate went on for 4 good hours. One, on the Council of State thing. I was proposing occupational representation in the second chamber. Take the Council of State out. What do? Nothing. But if you had a second chamber constituted of occupational representatives.
What do you mean by occupational representatives?
Lecturers, lawyers, chiefs, etc. They will select from among themselves one representative. So that you have a chamber that is not political. That was my alternative to the Council of State.
That would have created some sort of bicameral legislative system.
Yes, but it will not have been like the British Constitution with the House of Lords. This one would have invited the participation of non-political representatives. Every occupational group will have one rep. That is what I propose. Years later, Akufo-Addo is talking about the same thing. Alan Chemate is talking about the same thing. But my proposal was in 1991.
Let's move the conversation forward. So, as we get into election 2024, a lot of issues have arisen, and people are going to go to the ballot anyway on December the 7th. When you look at everything happening, recently there was talk about there were rigging claims made and all of that. Some say that is not the case. The Joaboso MP, Kwabena Mensah Kando, in the fray and all of that. What is your forecast ahead of the elections? Ghanaians want peace. We want free, fair, transparent elections. We want the will of the people to be expressed, but we also want peace.
Free from fear. Free, fair, and free from fear. No intimidation. No soldier should be going to the polling station with guns.
We've been told they will only come, they will be away from the perimeter. They will only come in if people are being unnecessarily boisterous. If they are doing things they shouldn't.
If you believe that in 2020, we all believe it will be peaceful. 8 people were shot. Akufo-Addo is the only president under whose administration we've lost lives in election. Is he proud of that? Sieg Heil, Mr. Fascist.
You want to keep addressing the president as a fascist.
He is.
And now you're saying Heil.
Sieg Heil. Sieg Heil. Sieg Heil. Hitler was greeted Sieg Heil.
Are you equating our president with Adolf?
Adolf was imbued by a sense of nationalism in his fascism. Under what philosophy is Akufo-Addo operating the current state of fascist rule? It's not imbued with any sense of nationalism. One thing that worries me about the Fourth Republic is that patronage has been carried to the most ridiculous level. A paramount chief who begs the president for development projects and who goes and thanks the president for having done our roads. It is your money, not his money. Why should you go and beg him? Why should you thank him for doing your roads? That's his mandate. And we have allowed this patronage system to fester. It's been festering for 8 years. Akufo-Addo is one of the people who started the infiltration of the civil service by planting so-called special advisors. Did you see or hear Rawlings appoint party people to go into the constitutional bodies? Rawlings heard that his uncle, Agbotui, was the CEO of the public procurement. In those days, their office was at Silver Cup, opposite the Societe Generale Bank. He got him to resign. Rawlings, his uncle, was the CEO. He got him to resign. That was the example of a good Democrat. Not a Democrat who wants to destroy every foundation that we have put up. It's not only the economy.
He's a Doyen. He believes in the rule of law. The basic principles that,
he
should govern a country.
Akufo-Addo believe in the rule of law.
Haven't you heard it
Or
said?
he just say it. Watch his actions. How does his actions relate to the rhetoric of being a champion of the rule of law?
Well, that can be assessed by
Exactly.
anybody, and everybody would have an opinion on it. But just back to the elections quickly.
His actions.
What do you foresee to be the fortunes of the NDC? Assuming these elections are free, fair, transparent, what do you think will be the outcome?
Fear.
And free from fear, right?
NDC will win hands down.
Hands down meaning what? Do you have projections?
One touch.
One touch victory.
Yeah.
No runoff.
Do you think Ghanaians wash their face upwards?
Well, there have been surveys. Fitch, EIU, among others, have said that the NDC is likely to win. The Global Info Analytics says so. But there is Professor Smart Sapong of the Kumasi Technical University who says it's not going to be, it's going to go into a runoff per his statistics. But Dr. Bawumia is going to lead Mahama 49% to 45%.
Oh, that's his belief. It won't happen.
Really?
Mahama will win.
But you've not been on the ground to conduct a poll.
No. But Ghanaians know that you cannot give these people 4 more years
Why?
to destroy the country. 8 years, look at the state of the economy. Look at our constitutional bodies. Look at what they've done to the country. Our moral turpitude as a country is non-existent.
You mean the
And
moral
we'll give
fabric? Right.
We'll give them 4 more years. Sometimes I don't blame the leadership. Like I said, patronage, beginning from the chief right down to the common person, is what have given these people the confidence to treat us as being stupid. You go and borrow money to manage the economy, indebt the country to more than $750 billion. And we are asking you for your policy for the next election. And you are saying people should go and borrow credit rating. We'll do credit rating so that they borrow. So from national borrowing down to the individual borrowing. Bawumia, is that not what he's saying?
I mean, it's part of digitization and digitalization.
Digitization. Right? The person can't get job. Where is he going to get the money to have the economic power they need?
Mm.
And is that how we should live? Borrow, Mr. Borrow. So he has another 4 years, and every Ghanaian will go and borrow to live.
But essentially, that's not what a credit score, credit rating.
Then what is
it's about your credit worthiness.
Why?
In case you
Why
decide
do you
to
need
go
a credit worthiness if you can't get a job? Why do you need credit worthiness?
Mm.
Credit worthiness have a purpose so that you can borrow. Is that not so?
Well, that is true.
Good. So why should ordinary people be borrowing after the government has borrowed?
Mm.
Borrow.
Let's before we conclude, before I take your final words, you've also been misquoted quite a few times. Recently, you got misquoted again about something you said, sort of suggesting you were supporting the vice president. Can you clarify what exactly it was you said?
Oh, the real tape has been posted to most social media.
Okay.
When Okatachi asked me,
Afrifa, right.
Afrifa asked me, between Rawlings and Bawumia, who should Ghanaians vote for?
Rawlings, or was it Mahama? Between Mahama and Bawumia. Right.
I started by saying, Of course, I'm an NDC man, so obviously I'll go for my NDC president. But I said, Ghanaians should vote for Bawumia if they cut the if off. The if I was going to say that if they are so daft, blind, and deaf that they cannot distinguish a con man from a real leader. That's what I was going to say.
Is that what you said?
No. But I wanted to be charitable.
So that was what you wanted to say?
Yes.
But you just left it as Ghanaians should vote for Bawumia if you left it there?
No. If they believe that he has done well, that's on the tape. But the evidence on the ground is that he hasn't done well. So the obvious choice is John Mahama. But that's what I said.
When you use the word con man, that is below the belt, isn't it?
It isn't.
It's not charitable.
It's not charitable. That's why
Would you like to take it back?
That's why I didn't use it.
But you're using it now. This will be played
now
on air.
It's just to demonstrate what I was going to say.
So you don't want to take it back?
No. It's a con man.
Why?
We are building airport at Cape Coast. We are also building a harbor. He didn't say we will. We are building. Paulugu Dam is the biggest project we are doing in the north. He didn't say we will do. We are doing. Always, Bawumia, we are doing. But there's nothing to show. So is he not conning us?
I see.
And is it not an insult to the intelligence of Ghanaians that you can look us in the face and tell us that we should give you 4 more years because you have bold solutions? Bold solutions. You talked about gold catcher. 2 years, they said they've got a gold catcher. How come the gold catcher is not going to the people doing illegal mining so that they will spare us our water? That is his policy to come. Gold catcher. But you had the gold catcher for 2 years. Why are you not distributing it?
Interesting points. Dr. Tony Aidoo, we have to wrap this up. We don't want to take too much of your time. Final words.
We've had 8 years of sheer nightmare. Akufo-Addo came and misled Ghanaians. We can't have that in Ghana anymore. We shouldn't go through this experience anymore. How can you manage an economy to the ground? And incidentally, this phenomenon...
You were part of the economic management team during your time, weren't you?
This phenomenon of borrowing, squandering, declaring bankruptcy, suing for debt forgiveness has been the whole essence of NPP administration. It dates all the way back to Buzia. Buzia had a problem with his finance minister, G.H. Mensah, because of borrowing. Borrowing, chopping the money, suing for bankruptcy, asking for debt forgiveness, and your foreign creditors will forgive you. Kufuor did the same thing.
Hey, pick?
Yes. Between 2006 and 2007, the Paris Club of Creditors forgave our foreign debt 66% of it. 66% forgiveness. By the time he was leaving office in 2008, he's borrowed again to 8 billion. Borrow. Akufo-Addo, same Boro.
I mean,
124 ministers.
From 2008, your party took it from 8 billion to about 120, and now they've taken it. Akufo-Addo has taken it from 120 to about 700 plus.
But you see the evidence of where the money went to.
Dr. Tony Aidoo, we're immensely grateful that you've taken the time today to interact with us.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of health, the best of strength, the best of life, and we pray for peace in Ghana. Would you like to conclude by giving us a peace message for Ghanaians ahead of election 2024?
Peace message. Let there be justice, and peace will follow.
Let there be justice.
Let there be justice. Don't pack the courts and tell us to go to court because you know you are going to win at the courts.
You don't trust the courts much?
No, absolutely. Look at the recent decisions. With the Supreme Court setting itself up as a supra-constitutional body. So now the Supreme Court dictates to Parliament. Every decision of the Supreme Court indicates that it is setting itself up as a supra-constitutional body.
Well, Parliament is also not above the law, is it?
Who?
Parliament is also not above the law.
Tell me or show me where Parliament has done anything that is not.
No, I'm merely saying that there is some co-equality among them.
Yeah.
So it's not about
an arm's length. Your power stops at the nose of Parliament. So why are you setting yourself up to dictate to Parliament how its proceedings should go? Look at the recent decision. So inconsistent. And yet, one of the cardinal principles in the application of principles and laws to decision is that the law must be predictable. The law must operate in a manner that gives confidence to people that if I go, I'll get justice. But if you flip-flop, Supreme Court, flip-flopping, inconsistency, that's what they do. The judgments. The people of Sao were deprived of representation for 4 years. The people of Jachikwesin's constituency.
Yeah, in the Asen area.
They were also denied representation. But when it comes to others, the Supreme Court says you cannot deprive their constituencies of representation. What is this? Is this law?
I guess time will shape the tide of the course of these matters. And you, of course, have a background in law as well. But thank you so much for joining the conversation with us today.
My pleasure.
And that has been AM Exclusive. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
AM Exclusive with Dr. Tony Aidoo. He, of course, a former ambassador to the Netherlands, a former Deputy Minister of Defense. He has served as Senior Presidential Aide and Head of Policy Evaluation and Oversight Unit of the Office of former President Mills. He's a man who speaks his mind without taking prisoners. He takes no prisoners. And today, we've had him for AM Exclusive. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. My name is Benjamin Akagbo. Thank you for watching.